you are really well positioned to answer this question. We hear a lot about the existential risk of AI, but what are the real practical everyday risks of biased artificial intelligence and generative artificial intelligence systems?
Well, there, as I mentioned, there are probably um, as many opportunities as the potential for some areas of risk and unintended impact, and bias is in fact one of those. When we think about this in the context of AI and machine learning generally, this looks like, perhaps an individual isn't getting the same kind of service or opportunities as another, loss of access to resources. This might mean that, a someone from the LGBTQIA plus community is not recognized or reflected in the results or a prediction that might be made by a system, or they might not be adequately factored into the product, right, that might be designed. In some extreme cases, this looks like, someone being misidentified and potentially going to jail or being arrested. With generative AI, these biases are, very similar and the same, in that, the potential for in the absence of people across different demographics, whether that's gender, ethnic, cultural, or religious diversity, um, could not have the same experience or same access to information, resources, opportunity, services, products. And that's why it's paramount for us to make sure that we're doing the work in order to ensure that the systems are fair and inclusive.
So, to that end, a lot of the decision making with generative AI systems can be opaque or unclear. So, how does AWS handle kind of this box of uncertainty that is or could be AI? How do you put your customers at ease? How do you deal with regulators? And how do you deal even with the general public who might have big questions about these algorithms that are kind of unknown, but creating outcomes that could impact their lives, uh, whether it's regulation, policy, or even a business decision?
So AWS has a four-pronged strategy overall that helps us to uh, galvanize our resources, our decisions, in terms of how we build our services and what that means in the way of advocating for and supporting our customers. And so that looks like one, our understanding and awareness of the value and importance for us to build services that are fair and inclusive, and are minimizing the risk on which our customers are then building upon. And that means that we're integrating responsible AI practices into the entire machine learning lifecycle or product lifecycle. The other is having a human-centered or people-centered focus, that we put people, and of course, being a customer-centric company, we put our customer, those people at the center of how we build, and are ensuring that not only they're at the center of how we build, but also that we're looking to build a diverse population of builders, other data scientists, engineers, developers that are contributing to the products and the technology that's being built. One is the other is that we are helping to support our customers along this journey so that they can operationalize responsible AI. And that means that we're giving them resources, tools, and services, perhaps like SageMaker Clarify, as well as people like my team that would help work and partner with our customers so that they can instantiate responsible AI best practices in their organization. And the last, and I mentioned this before, is advancing the science. And this means that we're participating in working groups to help establish standards around responsible AI with the IEEE and ISO, for example, or as well as partnering with other educational institutions to shore up and advance our technology or opportunity to solve some of the challenges that we have around responsible AI today. Like, for instance, what do we do with generative AI in order to ensure that we can eliminate or minimize hallucinations, right? These are areas that are still being explored from a science and research perspective, and we are, working very closely with institutions and in partnership with folks like the Partnership on AI in order to be able to advance the science and advocate for greater standards, interoperable sort of international standards, as well as the kind of regulation that's necessary to have the guardrails that we need to be able to leverage the technology to innovate.
What about some of the maybe very legitimate privacy concerns? How do we ensure both user privacy and business and government data privacy? You touched on some of this before, but how do we make sure private data stays private, but also leverage a lot of the benefits of artificial intelligence?
Yeah, so in the way of privacy, I think that one, organizations need to be mindful of where they are procuring their data, right? How do we get our data? What services are we using? How do we also hold our vendors to account? And that we're doing the kind of due diligence to understand how they are accessing or using data as well. I was on a panel discussion with an organization with a partner, and he was talking about ethically sourcing data, right? Having the confidence in knowing where this content eh, what's the content source, ensuring that we have the right kind of consent from the parties, right, the contributors, whoever owns that data, ensuring that the data is being used in the way that it was originally intended. And all of that is one helping to ensure that we are preserving or considering the privacy of individuals and others as we are building our models, as well as as folks begin to use the technology in other places. The kind of vendor diligence that I was talking about is very much like what organizations do when they are procuring software, right? Asking questions and wanting to know as well the ways in which those services and or data sources are being provided, and how that content how they've built their content. And that's something that's becoming much more customary, and we're seeing a lot more from our customers.
How should regulators build smart AI policy? It's a critical window right now. So, if you were to advise, what would you tell regulators to do that both helps AI evolve to a very useful state, but make sure that we don't get runaway technology that could be harmful to society and business?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We're at a critical moment because we've been using, and here's the thing, I think oftentimes people don't realize or haven't really tapped into the fact that we've been using artificial intelligence and in particular machine learning for a long time. Many folks have. Every time we use our GPS or navigation systems on our phones, whenever we're talking to our voice automated systems or activation systems, we're using AI. Even on, a teleconference or conference call, video conference call like we are using today, we're using, elements of AI. And so we are pretty far in terms of being engaged or having been using AI, and it's time for us to put policy in place, especially as we look at the fast ways in which AI, machine learning, generative AI will continue to shape and transform how we engage in the world, as well as the way that we consume information. And so I think it's important, one, that Um, Hopefully, we're not building legislation out of fear. Uh, and oftentimes we are reacting out of fear, but hopefully we can dispel or look for ways to one dispel some of the fears around AI so that we really can be thinking logically, practically about how we implement legislation. I think the other part of it is for us to have a close relationship with industry, technology, nonprofit organizations, along with along with legislators so that this multilateral conversation, some of which we're already a part of, can continue, and that we have people that have expertise and experience can help regulators understand more about the technology, its potential, its areas of risk, so that we're building smart regulation that allows us to leverage the benefits of the technology as well as giving us the right guardrails.